This is Z Richter, and welcome to my introduction into the commander role in Hell Let Loose. In this video, I'll be teaching you the basics of playing commander. I'll be gradually releasing more advanced guides on commanding in the future, but today we'll be focusing on what you need to succeed when you are just beginning your adventure into the role. The first thing you must understand as a commander is that your role is to put your team in a position to win. Spawn points and communication are the two biggest factors in winning matches in Hell Let Loose, in that order. As the commander, you need to make building a garrison network your number one priority. Giving your team the ability to spawn often and in a variety of locations allows your team to get into the battlefield quicker and more strategically. Building multiple garrisons around your defensive point and offensive point also acts as a radar system. You'll know where the enemies are coming from when you see those garrison symbols turn red or get destroyed. When you first spawn in as a commander, the very first thing you should do is spawn yourself a supply truck. The supply truck has 2 drops, with each drop containing enough supplies for a garrison. Before you begin driving to where you want to build your first garrison, open the map and drop supplies on the area where you will build your third garrison. Remember that every garrison must be at least 1 map square away from each other, so plan your placements accordingly. Once you've called in the supplies, begin driving and building the garrisons with your supply truck drops. By the time you finish building those 3 garrisons, you'll be able to call in another supply drop. Call in those supplies, build your 4th garrison, and head back to HQ to restock your supply truck. While squad leaders should help build garrisons for you, it is ultimately your responsibility to ensure your team has sufficient spawn points. There's a lot more to playing commander, but if you're able to provide your team with ample garrisons, know that you're doing a good job. In the Warfare game mode, I recommend having at least 3 garrisons on your current defensive point, 2 garrisons on your previous defensive point, and 2 garrisons on opposite areas of your offensive point. In the offensive game mode, on defense, I prefer to have 4 garrisons on my current point, 2 on the next defensive point, and 1 on the third. On offense, I want at least 3 garrisons in the blue that can attack the next point, while having 3 more around it in the red, and at least 1 away from the others as far back as I can build. That last garrison may be crucial in getting men to the next point when it is revealed. It's worth noting that when playing on offense, you'll be dismantling obsolete garrisons throughout the map. I recommend spawning at those garrisons and taking them down manually, opposed to using manpower resources to do it via the map. Now that we've covered the importance of garrisons, the next thing we'll cover is communication. This might seem simple, but I find that many commanders fail to properly communicate the right information. Remember that your job is to put your team in a position to win. Information is vital, and it's common to not receive that information unless you ask. You should be asking command chat questions to your team that you need answers to. Some examples are, do we have eyes on any enemy tanks? How is our offensive or defensive point looking? After your questions are answered, you should usually ask a follow-up question. For example, where are the enemies coming from? What kind of tank did you see? Is that tank stationary or is it moving? After you receive all the information you can, utilize your map markers to indicate what you know. If your defensive point is feeling pressure from the south, place an enemy infantry map marker south of the point. If there's a tank sitting on the next offensive point, mark it on the map. I can't stress how important map markers are. Sometimes it's hard to hear chat in the midst of a firefight, or if you're driving a tank. All players can see commander map marks, so even the people who can't hear your voice will be able to know what you are communicating via those map markers. Whenever you call in a recon plane, or when a spotter uses a flare, you should be opening up your map and placing map markers to indicate what is revealed. Red dots are infantry, hollow dots are light vehicles, and filled diamonds are tanks. Remember to utilize all of your map markers. Markers like call in artillery can be vital to ensure your munition resources are used wisely to fend off an attack, or to tip the edge in your favor when attacking a point. Putting a place garrison marker on supplies you are far away from may help a squad leader know that you are winning a garrison in that location, saving you the time of driving over there and making it yourself. Again, if you are a new commander, look at the available map markers you can place to get an idea of what needs to be communicated. Those map markers are in the game for a reason, so use them early and often. Lastly, I'm going to cover some basic tips that you need to play the commander role effectively when starting out. Tip number 1. If you've never played the commander role before, jump on an empty server and read all the commander abilities. These are located on the map. Use them while in that empty server, so you are more familiar with them in a real match. 2. You should never be in the HQ sitting around and doing nothing. There are more advanced tips I will cover in later videos, but when starting out, you should spend most of your time driving a supply truck around the map, dropping supplies, and building garrisons. If you happen to have a complete garrison network, find something productive to do that will help put your team in a position to win. Some examples are hopping on artillery, defending your previous defensive point in warfare, or hunting enemy garrisons behind enemy lines. Tip number 3. A team can have a maximum of 3 sets of nodes on a map. Ask in command chat and general chat for nodes. Having a complete set of nodes will help give you the resources you need for your commander abilities. Tip number 4. Strafing runs are almost always a complete waste of resources. Until you have a good grasp of playing commander, just avoid using them. Tip number 5. Try and avoid giving solo tank players anything more than a light tank. Unless you have an overabundance of fuel, a heavy tank should be given to, at minimum, a 2-man crew. Tip number 6. Precision strikes should only be used for enemy garrisons and heavy tanks. It has a long cooldown, so before you call one in, ensure that the mark on the map is 100% accurate and you have a near guaranteed shot at destroying your target. Tip number 7. When a player does something well, like build a garrison after you place a build garrison marker, thank them. If one of your tank crews takes out one of the enemy tanks, tell them they did a great job. If you ask the squad to fall back, and by the grace of God himself they actually did, thank them. When players feel their actions are appreciated, they tend to go out of their way to help you out in the future. Tip number 8. Don't get offended when a squad lead mentions you messed up. You're going to make mistakes, and when you begin playing commander, admit your mistake, thank them for their feedback, and maybe even ask questions on how you could have done something better. There are a lot of experienced and knowledgeable players out there, so soak up all the information you can get. Finally, you're not the boss of your fellow players. You can't make them listen to you. However, effective communication and common decency goes a long way. Like I said in the beginning, your role is to put your team in a position to win. Ultimately, it is up to your fellow players to follow directions, communicate what they see, and win their gunfights. In the end, this is just a game. So don't be too hard on yourself for losing. There's a lot more that goes into perfecting the role of commander, but if you're able to build your garrison network and communicate it well, you'll find yourself enjoying the game much more and winning more matches. I hope you have found my introduction to Commander helpful. I'll be uploading more advanced guides for Commander in the future. If you want to see more content like this, please like and subscribe. Have a great day. I'll see you guys on the battlefield after the draft.